in the next few hours right here. As powerful Miami invades, the Seminoles are summoned by a proud legacy to defend home soil.
There's a lot on the line. There's a winning streak on the line, tradition on the line, and just pride.
Noles nemesis Ken Dorsey has joined the Pantheon and become pals with Miami's past greats.
You could tell when he really made it when we were giving him our real phone numbers. Not just the ones that go to voicemail.
You want numbers? Grossman and the Gators go to Auburn. Half the Pac-10 is perfect, but not for long, as the Huskies bring a backup to the Bruins den. The road to Pasadena goes right through the dope, and College Game Day counts down to kickoff next.
College Game Day is presented by Discover Card, proud sponsor of college football's premier pregame show.
Well, off their bus and into the brick house come the Hurricanes. Many of these veterans part of a victory over FSU last year that stopped a losing streak. Whispers that they expect not just to win, but a convincing win today here in Tallahassee of all things. And plenty of Canes fans have joined us this morning. Welcome inside Doak Campbell Stadium as we count down to kick off 90 minutes away on ABC. Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, and Kirk Herbstreit. Plenty on this game, and guys, a theme all across the landscape. Road tests. 9 of the top 11 are away from home in hostile places like the Big House and the Jungle. And this place right here for #1 Miami. Kirk.
Well, there's some great games all over the country today. The game here, two things I'm anxious to see. Number one for Florida State. In their loss to North Carolina 3 weeks ago, leadership was a question. The leadership today, they're going to be fired up in front of this home crowd. Can they maintain that attitude for 4 quarters? And then Miami. Miami has been very businesslike for most of the season. The only time we've seen Miami play with any emotion, first half against Penn State, where they outgained them 372-67. Miami will not be intimidated by coming to Tallahassee.
And there's no question about that. This is a big ball game, and you know how you can tell? What I'm looking forward is seeing how many of the former pros on both teams come on the sideline to watch their team. Florida State is expecting at least a dozen pros or former pros, led by Corey Simon of the Eagles and Mr. Tallahassee, Deion Sanders. But Miami counters with an All-American Lamar Thomas and a bunch of guys coming in. Remember, last year, we actually thought it was an advantage because Miami had more pros there than Florida State.
Well, they had Kozar and Kelly and Urban. Those guys don't just watch, they coach.
No,
they get players. Well, the question is how many of the 18 major college unbeatens will survive? That number could really shrink today. And several of them are going to join the nation's first bowl-eligible team. Maryland, of all people, they visit here in a couple of weeks. Purdue takes an undefeated record to Michigan. Boilers have been 5-0, not since World War II. They're going to need their best game, though, to avoid revenge against Michigan after blowing a 28-10 lead to Purdue last year. That game's coming up in 90 minutes on ESPN. Later, the first of 2 matchups with Pac-10 unbeaten teams involved. The setup from Pasadena now with Shelley Smith. Shelley?
Washington and UCLA will try to keep their national championship hopes alive in this pivotal Pac-10 showdown. UCLA is coming off a bye week. They're rested and healthy. Washington, on the other hand, will be without tight end Jeremy Stevens and starting quarterback Cody Pickett. However, it was backup quarterback Taylor Barton who last week led the Huskies back in one of their famous comebacks. More about those later in the show. Now let's go to Steve Cyphers in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Fresno State resumes its Cinderella season, this time on the road in Fort Collins, Colorado, against Colorado State, a team that last beat a ranked opponent here in U Stadium in 1993. That team was Fresno State. We'll talk with the Dogs head coach Pat Hill in just about a half hour.
And more on some weather that might be a factor in that game. We mentioned the strange feeling here. The mighty Seminoles, a home underdog by a touchdown, facing a talent deficit, trying to overcome inferior experience and depth. In 2 weeks of film study, Bobby Bowden says he saw a Miami team that reminded him of the teams in the 80s. Complete. They have overwhelmed 4 opponents by a combined 175-35. The starters have not played in the 4th quarter, but that kind of dominance has fueled doubts. How will they respond to a challenge? This team still has its doubters, and as we bring in Tony Barnhart. Tony, I want to ask you a question here. What do these three teams have in common? Buffalo, East Tennessee State, and Nicholls State.
Well, Chris, but thank you. I don't need a lifeline on that one. Those are the 3 wins, the only 3 wins of Miami's opponents to date. So the Hurricanes are undefeated, but the competition hasn't been very good. Miami's #1, but by the slimmest of margins. Miami is favored to win today against Florida State, but it's the Hurricanes who say they have something to prove.
North Carolina really didn't win that game. They lost it. You know, they made a lot of mistakes that led them to, to lose that game. But I think overall, you look at them, and it's Florida State, Miami.
A lot of people that looked down on them in the polls and in the press because of the injuries, and they lost. And they still talented. It's going to be a dogfight.
No matter what, their outcomes of the past games, ours also. They're gonna bring their A game towards us, because it's a make it or break it season for us, and for them, it's a 10-year streak up there.
Now, earlier this week, Coach Larry Coker said, if we can get out of here with a 1-point win, everybody in Miami will be happy. Don't you believe it? For the Hurricanes, this is a statement game, and the talking begins at high noon. Now for an update on Florida State, let's go to Scott Van Pelt.
Well, Tony, if it's a statement game for Miami, it's an elimination game for Florida State. That, according to their head coach, Bobby Bowden. He says we lose today, we'll be eliminated for contention for our 4th consecutive appearance in a national championship game. But before the Noles can begin any California dreaming, they have a much more humble short-term goal, better execution.
Just like losing the North Carolina game, we can think this, we can say that. It was lack of execution. You can't, if we had turned the ball over 5 times and had 14 penalties against Georgia Tech last year, we'd have lost. Or the year before, we'd have lost. Or if it had done that against Florida last year, we'd have lost. You're not going to win games. It's the execution. That we became unsettled in the heat of battle. We're ahead 9-7 in the 3rd quarter. But we just fell apart, and that's the thing we must prevent. Here's a football team, if you fall apart, they won't ever stop scoring.
That's a sobering thought, but you get the feeling Coach Bowden is loving this underdog role, and his team is buying into the bunker mentality as well. Senior wideout Javon Walker says, if you're with us, great, and if you're not, we'll see you when this ball game is over. Chris, we'll see you a little later with more on the Seminole state of mind.
All right, Scott, there are plenty of reasons for sobriety, Kirk. There's been an amazing turnover on this Florida State team. Only 26 guys who are going to put on the garnet and gold played against Miami last year. Only 5 started. 39 who played in that game have either left, transferred, or hurt. That's alarming.
And experience in college football is everything. With the graduation of Chris Wenke and Snoop Minnis, the injuries early, Anquan Bolden and Robert Morgan, you saw Florida State offense that got more conservative, trying to take the pressure off their young redshirt freshman quarterback Chris Ricks. I think it cost them a ball game against North Carolina. Finally, last week, they opened up the playbook, and Chris Ricks had a phenomenal game. Today against Miami, in my opinion, they will not be able to run the football. They will have to throw. Put the ball in the hands of the young quarterback Chris Ricks, open up the playbook, give him a chance to throw the football. There's 2 questions. Can they protect him? And number 2, if they do, can a redshirt freshman with all this pressure make the plays he has to make to win this game?
A lot of pressure on him, isn't it? I'm going to give you a little history lesson right now. In 1958, Coach Tom Nugent led Florida State to victories over Miami, at Miami 17-6, and at Tennessee 10-0. And that was the year of the breakthrough for Florida State. And don't guess Campbell Stadium. This stadium here went from 20,000 to 85 over the years. The Noles have won 54 straight games here. But let me give you an interesting stat that I believe in. Home field advantage is relative to the type of team you've got. Now, every 80% of the games that I've coached in are won with the guy with the best players on his side, no matter where the game is played. This is a young Florida State team. This is not one of Florida State's great football teams right there.
That's why I think the crowd has to play a role for a rare occasion. This place doesn't really have any mystique, but the locals are hoping it acquires some today, because there's a lot on the line, not just the home streak. 14 straight, top 4 finishes also on the line. Ken Dorsey, his relationship with the former Cane has been part of his success. The old number 7 for Tech, Michael Vick, is in Atlanta. They got a new one and a good old defense. And Troy State, taking on all comers, will go inside the Trojans program coming up from Tallahassee.
Today's show is presented by Discover Card, proud to be the sponsor of College Game Day. And in part by 1010-220. Dial it, and all calls up to 20 minutes are only 99 cents. On Campus is presented by Outback, proud sponsor of the 2002 Outback Bowl.
right through.
I mean,
like Jan Stenerud.
Second and 7, tight formation. They run. Burns. He lost the ball. Maryland wins. They recover the fumble, and the Terrapins are undefeated.
Move over Fresno State. There's another Cinderella story in college football, and it's the Maryland Terps.
And move over Florida State. There's a new leader in the ACC right now. Great calls by Mike Tirico there. You guys were there to watch the Terrapins. Let me ask you, are they legit?
Oh, I think so. I tell you what, the highest compliment players can play their coach is to play hard for them, never give up and fight. And let me tell you something, last Thursday night, the Maryland football team did exactly all those things for Coach Ralph Friedgen. I tell you, he and his staff are doing a great job, and Maryland has enough football players to come in this place and give Florida State all they can handle.
Oh, people aren't happy about that. However, you look at this football team, it's amazing what Ralph Friedgen has been able to do, because this is a team now that has won 6 games. They're the first team that's bowl eligible, and they go into games expecting to win. They have a dominating defense. E.J. Henderson, one of the best linebackers in the country. And the good thing about their offense is they don't have a lot of big playability, but their quarterback, Sean Hill, makes fantastic decisions and keeps his team out of bad plays.
They have Clemson at home, I believe, down the line, right?
They've got 8 wins and have to pull off a few upsets.
Meanwhile, it is homecoming for the Virginia Tech Hokies tonight. BC, by far the best team they've faced. The Eagles' defense has come on since getting scorched by Stanford. But Tech is a big step up for Boston College. They got manhandled by the Hokies last year. In Blacksburg, they're already looking forward to the December 1st visit by Miami. That might be dangerous, except the Big East appears to be certainly a 2-team conference until proven otherwise. So many fresh faces on offense, the Hokies might be vulnerable, except that defense. 17 takeaways. They've scored as many touchdowns as they've given up, 3. With more on that, we go to Blacksburg and Dave Barnett. Dave?
Bruce Smith, the best defender Virginia Tech has ever produced, would recognize and be very proud of the way the Hokies have built their 5-0 start this year. A strong, steady running game, a big play passing game, the nation's best special teams again, but even by Virginia Tech standards, Bill, they're playing unbelievably defensively.
That's a very good word. And big man, you like defense, get a load of this. Ranked #1 in the nation in each of these categories. This defense is giving up 4.8 points a game, 39.4 yards rushing per game, and only 175 yards total. On third down, opposing offenses are converting at the rate of 16% per third down. That is remarkable.
Mike, those numbers scream dominance. You're telling me you have a problem with how they've built the numbers?
Well, I certainly don't have a problem with the way they play, but it has been against a very weak schedule, and that will be tested today. But the way they play defense, they love to put those corners out in press coverage, have 8 or 9 in the box, and dare you to gain some yards against them. They are relentless in pursuit of the ball carrier. But this will truly be their stiffest competition to date against Boston College, who last year put up 213 yards on the ground against them. And today, William Green, their leading rusher, is the only Division I back to go for over 100 yards in all 5 games this year, so it will be a test.
Power against power, the number 5 running back of the country, and the nation's #1 defense out to stop him.
All right, fellas, we look forward to that game. Brian St. Pierre efficient on offense as far as the passing game, but it's all built around Green. But it's going to be tough sledding against the Hokies.
Virginia Tech, the one stat they forgot in that situation, they've had 3 shutouts in their 5 football games. But as they said, the tough runner, the tailback William Green, will test the front 7 for Virginia Tech. But I tell you what, they can play up front. Number 71, David Pugh, is outstanding. Watch his quickness coming off the ball. He runs right through him and gets a good sack. But this is the guy I like, number 40, Ben Taylor. Now, Taylor is 6'3" and can run. He comes from nowhere right here to and knock that quarterback down. If Virginia Tech has a weakness, it's in their pass defense, because they only rank 2 nationally in that category. Now, I'll tell you one thing about Virginia Tech. They can play defense, but BC's going to be around for a while. Virginia Tech wins it by 2 touchdowns.
You're right. Virginia Tech's defense is phenomenal. I don't care who they're playing. The concern about them long-term is the offense. Look at the loss of Michael Vick, the injury early to Lee Suggs. It's given this team, the offense, the young players that have had to fill the shoes, some weaker opponents to at least get some experience, and they've stepped up and played well. I like Virginia Tech to win big in this game. Their offense is starting to come together.
And after that big win, they have a bye week, and then Syracuse comes calling to Lane Stadium. The Orangemen are the best team they're going to face until road game at Virginia, and then, of course, the Hurricanes come in. That is part of our ESPN 2 lineup. Iowa, Michigan State at noon. Fresno State, CSU at 10 Eastern. We'll talk more about that game. And then Boston College and Virginia Tech, 6:30 from Lane Stadium. You know, Virginia Tech was once kind of a struggling 1A program in an out-of-the-way spot. Building a winner in 1A, well, it's easier than it used to be, but making the jump from 1AA to the big time is tough. It can be done. Look at Marshall. But now here's Troy State taking its lumps but cashing checks as a 1A rookie / victim for hire. The Trojans have put 9 players into the NFL in Larry Blakeney's 10-year tenure, so it's really no surprise that they played Nebraska and Miami pretty tough for a 7-touchdown underdog, and that's sandwiched around a win over Nicholls State. Here's a peek inside the building of a 1A program as Troy State braces for another paycheck game at Mississippi State.
Bow your heads. Our Father, who art in heaven.
How difficult is it to assess the capabilities of your football team when you're playing teams of such diverse talent?
It's very difficult, I would say.
Number 1 team in the nation across the field from you, across the line from you on every snap.
And you know nobody thinks you are anything right now. It has a tendency to give you a false impression of who you are maybe and who your opponent is.
Dorsey takes the handoff. Flash throws over the middle. Shockey at the 22. Breaks the tackle. The 15.
They're the number 1 team in the country. That's false, baby. They're supposed to be the number 1. Get it all. Get it all.
Nutter takes the snap. He rolls backwards to the right.
Throws back to the left. It is over. Touchdown, Peewee. LeBaron Black in the...
Hey, hell of a job. The whole drive. Hey, just keep it up.
It's the end of the first quarter. Top-ranked Miami 7, Troy State 7.
We're not just a small donkey team from 1AA that just making the transition for money.
A diving catch inside the 5 by Hayward Skipper. Wow. Troy State giving Miami fits this half.
We came out and gave them a quick score there in the third quarter, and I think everything kind of went downhill from there.
You can turn the ball over against Miami, you're going to get clobbered.
Hey, that's all right, brother. Hey, you make him want to win the game.
You've got to be perfect.
Like I said, I don't want you to feel bad about anything. You don't have anything to be ashamed of. And I'm proud of you. Let's get ready and get our butts back to Troy, Alabama. Positive focus on what we're doing this week. Whatever's happened in the past, Miami's gone.
What do you think the mental makeup of your team is right now, the mental state of it?
Well, I think it's pretty fragile. This senior class, which is not a big class, but they're going to be forever remembered at Troy State and the things they're doing, the people they're playing, and the things that are taking place here. And we're like a 100-meter guy, and we're running against world-class people that are better than us time-wise. This game that we're getting ready to play, Mississippi State, they're a very fragile football team right now.
We just want to go out and prove that we are not no little 1A team that's here to get beat by everybody.
If you could trade this experience for like a conference championship ring, which experience would you rather have and why?
I think I'd rather have this experience because you're going up against the best week in and week out.
We haven't embarrassed ourselves, and hopefully that's some reward. I'll promise you this, what you're doing will be worthwhile to you and this university for years to come after I'm gone.
Now, for program building, Troy State would like to follow the model of Middle Tennessee. 8-game winning streak. It's their 3rd year in 1A. They beat Vanderbilt in the opener, beat Troy State, beat a couple of Louisiana branch campuses under Coach Mark Owens. Dwan Hicks gives them a very good rushing offense, as you can see there. Next week, Middle Tennessee at Ole Miss. In November, they visit LSU. The little guys trying to build their programs. Well, coming up next, a painful flashback. This is the last time the Noles lost a home game almost 10 years ago.
It's up.
ESPN Classic Tradition is brought to you by Tostitos Scoops, the dip lover's chip.
Look closely on the chin there. At the walkthrough last night, Miami players weren't here long, but they were here long enough to carve U of M in the face of the Seminole Chief logo. It's a took a picture of that, showed it to the Florida State team. Well, regardless of where they're from, fans, players, coaches have some pretty strong feelings about the football programs in the state of Florida. On Game Day Q&A, we asked folks from Florida's Big Three which in-state rival they dislike the most.
Right now, Miami. Because last year, you know, they quoted sayings, they're going to win the game, and big-time players make big-time plays, and, you know, they backed it up.
I played against Miami. I didn't get a chance to play against Florida State, and I hate them both, to tell you the truth.
University of South Florida. No, I'm playing.
People say we'd rather beat. I think our alumni and everybody would rather beat Florida because we live with them all year long.
If you asked me before the Sugar Bowl, it was Florida State, but after the Sugar Bowl, I think I dislike Florida just as much as I dislike Florida State, and I think they'll tell you the same thing too.
Well, this rivalry certainly peaked in the late 80s, early 90s, kind of faded when Miami got slugged by probation, then was reborn last year in that heart-stopping finish that kind of provided haunting flashbacks for FSU. The history of these classics being decided by kicks barely missed began 10 years ago. It was a wild affair fueled by Luther Campbell, the notorious rapper of Two Live Crew at that point. He captured in a homemade video some Knowles players talking trash in a nightclub here, Marvin Jones and William Floyd, then played it for the Miami players 2 nights before the game. From upstanding role models to uprights barely missed, it's certainly been a colorful living history.
The 1991 Seminoles began the season at #1 and entered their matchup with Miami fresh off 3 routes of top 20 teams. The Canes came into Doak Campbell ranked #2 and led by their famed Bermuda Triangle of linebackers, Darren Smith, Michael Barrow, and Jesse Armstead.
I remember it being as good as a game could be built up to be #1 and #2, coming down to a field goal to win or lose the game.
This Larry Jones touchdown gave the Canes a 17-16 lead with 3 minutes to play. But the Noles countered quickly, marching downfield to set up a 34-yard field goal attempt by Jerry Thomas with 29 seconds left.
It's up. Missed it to the right.
I thought it was good, and I started to walk out on the field. I noticed all the Miami guys jumping up and down, hollering and screaming. You know, what are they screaming about? We just whipped y'all. You know. Then I saw that we missed the wide right, and I couldn't hardly believe it.
Bobby probably wouldn't have believed that he'd be in the same situation the following year. But just 320 days later, he sent Dan Mowry onto the field in the Orange Bowl, this time looking for a tie.
Good snap. Here's the kick by Mowry. It's got the distance. It is wide right. Oh, my.
It's amazing how one swing of one leg can determine the feelings of so many people.
Last season, the Seminoles rolled into the Orange Bowl, again ranked #1, and with a kicker who hoped the game wouldn't come down to a field goal.
I'd rather, win this game by a lot and not make it a close one.
Munyon was warming up in the OB while Game Day was on the air.
Well, you're asking how's he looking today? Yeah. Matt Munyon in warm-up? That's way wide left. As Bobby said, that's scary. Come on, it's going to be okay, big guy.
Just like in '91, the Canes took the lead with enough time to let the Noles move into field goal range. And like '92, a kick would tie the game.
You can kick them this long. Here's the snap, the spot, the kick, airborne, 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 airborne. It is no good! Canes win!
They missed wide right again.
Here's Xavier Bethea, the kicker for the Noles this year. He's a freshman from Tampa. And warm-ups, man, is a little wide right, but he's been a money kicker. Lee, don't worry about it. He's 5 for 5 in games. Has missed a couple of extra points. He's a guy from Tampa whose father was a former pro high-life player. It's all right.
Come on.
This year, Bowden said he would take a field goal. If it came down to a field goal at the end of the game, he would be very happy with it.
At least he's a Catholic, so maybe he's got a chance.
Get at the beach. All right, time for Game Day Q&A. Let's see what's on the mind of the fans this week.
Lee, we just want to know, after we beat Miami today, what are our chances in finishing the top 5 like we have for the past 15 years?
Let's go, Noles!
All right, it looks like the guys at the ATO house. Well, let me tell you something. First of all, you got to beat Miami. Then you got to win the rest of the ball games. But the tough game, I mean the really tough one, is those mighty Gators in Gainesville. That's the team they're going to have to win eventually to get in the top 5.
All right, question number 2.
ATO house, huh?
ATO house.
Side of you, I didn't know.
Question number 2.
Hey, Kirk, after 2 big wins at Kansas State and Texas, why is Oklahoma still number 3?
Well, that's really an ongoing debate here early in the year. Number one, who cares in this month? In the month of October, let's let the teams play these football games. My opinion, Oklahoma ended the year last year as a national champion. This is a new season. There's new polls this year. Miami of Florida and the Florida Gators right now are the best 2 teams in the country based on the way they're playing. But Oklahoma still has plenty of time to get themselves in position to get out to Pasadena.
Yeah, in my AP ballot, I do have Miami number 1. I usually vote on merit, so I'm not really sure why. Because under that philosophy, I have Florida number 2, Oklahoma 3. But you really should have Florida and Oklahoma 1 and 2 on merit alone.
Right.
Question number 3.
All right, Lee, we got our gear here. How do you get your gear for your predictions each week?
Well, I tell you what.
Ongoing.
That is a secret that I'm not going to tell you. So not so fast, my friend. I'm not telling you how I do that.
The headgear procurement, a well-guarded secret.
Absolutely.
Even in your home soil here.
Absolutely.
Right. Kind of changes every week.
We'll see whose headgear you're donning at high noon here. And if you want to send these guys questions throughout the week at ESPN.com, it's Lee Mail and QB Mail. Lee, I enjoyed your Lee Mail this week, talking about Oklahoma and saying you were going to believe in the Sooners from now on.
I'm picking them against Nebraska. I don't care what happens.
Who are they going to lose to?
Nobody.
Well, you're going to put them in the championship game?
Against Virginia Tech.
All right, fellas, to be continued. All right. We'll see if you believe in the Wolverines. They rolled to an easy win in Happy Valley, but today they welcome undefeated Purdue to the Big House on ESPN. And Fresno's fast start has Pat Hill dreaming of BCS. The head Bulldog joins us. When we come back, a lot more in this game as well from Tallahassee coming up. Oh, right alongside Charlie Ward and Dion in the Florida State Hall of Fame. There he is, the Sunshine Scooter, old number 11. Didn't quite get it done against the Canes, but very much a part of the building of this program back when this was kind of a small steel stadium. Right?
Yes, it was. Miami beat us 81-7 in the 3 games I played.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
I
brought it up. All right. ESPN games today. It was not going to be 81-7 when Purdue and Michigan get together at noon Eastern time. Florida, Auburn coming up in prime time. More on that game later on. The Boilermakers, as the lone Big Ten unbeaten, are not looking ahead, but we are. If they could upset Michigan today, look out. 4 of their final 6 games are at home, where they're always very tough. Purdue fans are spoiled. The offense has not been as flashy as it was in the Breeze era. They're kind of grumbling. And when you talk about the talent that Michigan has lost on offense, keep in mind Purdue has lost 5 players off that offense to the NFL. Still, they've been resourceful. That's a Tiller trademark. 4th quarter comebacks against Minnesota and Iowa. Brandon Hance, he's been a very clutch quarterback. Not always prettily, but his stats in the 4th quarter are very good.
He's a very competitive quarterback, and this game could be played in the rain, and that's another reason why Purdue might have a shot at Michigan in the Big House, because rain games usually are won with solid defense, a quarterback that can scramble and score, and a place kicker that can kick clutch field goals. Purdue has all 3 of those factors. Brandon Hance, number 4. He's a big, strong kid that can run inside the goal line. Travis Dorsch, number 30, kicked 3 field goals last week to win that football game. Now, Purdue is a double-digit underdog, which means they're a big-time underdog. But rain is a great equalizer. I think Michigan wins this one, but I think it's closer than the experts think.
Real close.
Yeah.
I think if you look at Michigan's defense, they've improved a lot. Last year, the Michigan defense was one of the worst in the history of Michigan football. This year, they've been able to turn it around. More consistent up front in the front 7, and I think that's the key. The front has to apply pressure to get to Brandon Hance, because Michigan's going to sit back in a nut, kind of a shell secondary. Here you can see against Illinois, similar look that Purdue will give them today. 4 wide receivers, 4 defensive backs, drop a 5th one into coverage, keep the ball in front of you, come up and make the tackle. Purdue has been able to win some football games this year, find ways to win, but they've been winning ugly. I think it'll catch up to them today. I think they're playing a much better team. Michigan at home, too much defense, too much speed on offense. Michigan wins big.
Big. A lot of pressure on that Purdue defense, rain or shine, because I don't know if the offense is going to get it done. You know, Joe Tiller this week has been quoted on another topic, the rise of Fresno State's program. Tiller mentioned the same thing that many coaches in the Pac-10 and Mountain West have also talked about. Fresno State has about 23 non-academic qualifiers, which is a big reason why they have so much talent on that team. Sonny Lubick, remember, he balked at the idea of Fresno State joining the Mountain West, and Pat Hill certainly remembers that. It was the Rams, not the Bulldogs, who were ranked preseason. They've had a disappointing 2-3 start. They can reverse that today as the Bulldogs come calling, and we rejoin Steve Cyphers in Fort Collins.
Chris, in August, Fresno State began this perfect season down the road in Boulder with a win over Colorado. At the time, Oregon State, Wisconsin, and Colorado State looked to be the potential stumbling blocks remaining on the schedule, but the Beavers and Badgers fell. And now come the Rams, who are 2-3 and still looking to find an offense. Still, the Bulldogs are not taking this game for granted.
It's huge. It's the biggest game of the week, as Coach Hill likes to say, but it's even bigger because we're undefeated right now.
They'll be amped up, and coming in number 8, we'll have something to, play and to prove. And like always, we'll have to go in at the top of our game.
We're happy that we're top 10, but it's not anything that's surprising to us. We expected to be here.
At the beginning of the season, maybe just people around Fresno or in California were watching the Bulldogs, but now, I mean, everyone's paying attention to what Fresno State's doing.
The way we're playing is the team that we are. That's just what we're about, and it's no gimmick behind it. It's no luck. It's just, that's the way it is. We're going out and we're playing hard, and, we're beating teams, and that's what it's all about.
Of course, the man who imparts that attitude to the Bulldogs is the coach, Pat Hill from Fresno State. Pat, thanks for joining us. First things first, this weather, it's kind of windy. How does that affect David Carr in the passing game?
I don't know if it'll affect David much, but it'll definitely affect, the kicking game, field position, those type of things. But, until they put a dome on the stadium, we got no choice.
What are your concerns going into this game against a team that's 2-3 and the offense is looking rather rusty?
Well, Colorado State, 5 out of the last 7 years has been very successful, and I know Sonny will have them ready to play.
Are there any concerns defensively, looking at them, how they played Louisville? Can your offense move when Louisville couldn't?
Well, we've got to be patient with the offense. They're not going to give you the big plays, and they're going to keep the ball in front of them. We got to be very patient, and I think that's the key to the game on offense is being patient.
The talk has been that this is the last tough game for Fresno State. They could run the table from here. I'm sure you've heard it. How do you keep your players from listening to that kind of thing?
We know it's different. We know that today's game against Colorado State will get their best shot, and we'll get each team's best shot each week, and that's the way we got to look at it. Our biggest competition's ourselves, and we just need to get better every week. That's what we have to do.
Is there any kind of kick being the thorn in the BCS side these days?
I don't know if it's being a thorn. I just think it's an opportunity for us to have a chance to play in a big game, and I think the BCS has given that opportunity to everybody in Division I football, and why not us? Why shouldn't we have that opportunity?
Fair enough, Coach. Thanks for your time.
All right.
All right, guys. That's it from here, Chris. Back to you.
Steve, thank you. Their BCS numbers dropping because victories over Oregon State and Wisconsin don't look as good as they did. They do visit Hawaii. That might be the one tough spot. The weather there is going to be good. I think they catch a break with the weather tonight. You've been in Fort Collins at night in October. You could have the sideways snow. The wind, though, David Carr's got a strong enough arm, you think, that won't be a factor?
Well, David Carr and the Bulldog offense, they've demonstrated the big play ability all year long, and now they're going up against a secondary that's allowing their opponents to complete 63%. In my opinion, Colorado State's only chance in this game is to hope that their zone blitz package will be able to get some pressure on David Carr. Lee and I saw this firsthand a couple weeks ago. They get after it. They don't have great athletes, but they understand Larry Kerr's scheme, and they love to play hard. It's a group that plays together as a team, and they're a young group, but they're beginning to come together. I agree. I think this is the toughest game that Fresno State has left, and I think they'll pressure David Carr. I think this game's going to be closer than people think because of the defense of Colorado State. The problem is Colorado State can't score.
We saw these guys play, and I was tremendously impressed on how, as Kirk said, on how hard their defense played. They're extremely well coached. They run and they hit, but as being nice, their offense is awful. So I think the game's going to be a low scoring. It'll be close, and closer than the experts think, but Fresno State wins it anyhow. But I tell you what, Colorado State in that stadium might have a chance.
You're being nice when you call the offense awful. Imagine if you didn't like it. Imagine if you weren't a nice guy.
I tell you, they were awful.
I don't know about keeping it close. I think the weather's really going to need to be a factor, and Fresno's going to have to make some mistakes. As CSU's, they didn't vaunt the defense, didn't handle the Colorado speed very well. I'm just saying. We'll see. I'd like to see them give a bit of a
They're different defense.
They've improved. All right, another non-BCS conference unbeaten is BYU. Talk about offense. They are not awful. Look at the points they've scored. Gary Croton in his first year injecting enthusiasm. He's invigorated this program. 51 points a game with Staley and Brandon Doman, but their 5 victims are winless. So New Mexico today is their first opponent that actually has a win. They have Air Force and CSU coming up. We'll talk Big 12 in his second year as we return to Tallahassee. That's a good look there, my man. The Sooners have a week away from the spotlight after the big test. Eric Crouch and the Huskers head to Waco as they count down to the showdown with Oklahoma. And the Big 12's big game this week is in Boulder, where the unbeaten Aggies visit Colorado. We'll talk Big 12 straight ahead from Tally. In Tallahassee, the quiet moments, an hour to kickoff in the Florida State locker room.
Right now, Florida State players thinking about what it will take to pull off the upset. A lot of emotions. Offensive players, though, just kind of going through your schemes and your checks and different things like that. It's more cerebral on the offensive side.
It'll be more emotional later on.
Yes, it will.
In the Big 12, no quarterback controversy, says Bob Stoops. Nate Hibble is healed. He gets to start over. Last week's hero, Jason White. OU visits Kansas. We're counting down to showdown time. Nebraska takes on Baylor. Those teams will meet in Lincoln as unbeatens in all likelihood on October 27th. Well, the other Big 12 unbeaten is Texas A&M. They're an underdog at Colorado, where the Buffaloes have a lot of confidence coming off the program's biggest win in about 5 years at Kansas State. Momentum is building, recruiting going well, but today is a crucial step. Marvin holding his team can build on the things the way the 95 Northwestern team did. Aggies have a great defense. No points allowed all season in the fourth quarter. They have Gerard Penwright. He has 9 sacks. Sammy Davis, the Candyman, he has 4 interceptions. But that offense, A&M is the lowest scoring team among the 18th unbeatens. It's going to get much tougher for both of these teams beginning today because the Big 12 is tough. Look at the one-loss record of remaining opponents. Wazoo has the toughest remaining schedule, but right there, A&M and Colorado. The Buffs visit Texas next week, later travel to Iowa State, host Nebraska, and the Aggies have to visit Kansas State and Oklahoma. We are going to learn a lot more about both of these teams this afternoon.
No question about that. Right now, both of these football teams are playing very good defense. Lately, Texas A&M is number 3 in the nation on defense. Colorado held Kansas State to 6 points. Texas A&M, average offense. Colorado, really an excellent offense that's well balanced. And they're led by the quarterback, Craig Oaks. Here he hits tight end David Graham for a 21-yard touchdown pass. I like the way he throws the ball. Chris Brown, inside runner number 22. He's a special kind of football player in the goal line. In a preseason speech, I said that I thought that Colorado would go and represent the Big 12 in the Alamo Bowl. And they're going to win today. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, they're really starting to gel right now.
Singing?
I like that. Just try not to sing for us, please. Colorado, you know, there's the football team that's starting to come together. You look at their defense. They lost their emotional leader, Ja'Shawn Sykes, stepped up, played their best game yet last week against Kansas State, came together, relied on Michael Lewis to become that new leader. But this is a team that's getting ready to face an offense today. Chris mentioned the numbers. I think A&M is still searching for an identity. They mess around with the spread offense. They go back to the eye. And I think that today, the inconsistencies with A&M's offense will cost them today in Boulder. I like Colorado to win. I think they're going to win big.
We talked to Mark Ferris last night. He seems confident. They do a lot of things on offense, which can hurt a defense's preparation. But if you don't do them well, it hurts your offense. And they only had 16 points against Baylor, and they have struggled. I expect a tough defensive game right there, though, just like these guys do. We're going to come back. We'll visit with the starting quarterback, Ken Dorsey, and Clinton Portis. Can he bust loose? Can the Canes establish a ground game? That'll be important. Mr. Dorsey, the cleanest pants in college football. He has not been sacked all season long. Miami, the only team that can say that.
College Game Day is presented by Discover Card, proud sponsor of college football's premier pregame show.
The cool and confident Ken Dorsey, at least 1 touchdown pass in 20 consecutive Miami games. The fact that he's played against FSU before is certainly an edge. It's also a big day for another Mr. Dorsey. We're talking Adam Dorsey, a Florida State student, the older but not bigger brother of Ken. As always, he'll be wearing Canes colors despite his school pride. Ken Dorsey is the latest long-distance recruit to carry on the quarterback legacy at Miami. Like others before him from Pennsylvania, Ohio, New York, California, Minnesota, Dorsey has learned how to use the awesome talent around him and also to handle the pressures of the position. As Armando Seguro reports, he's had some highly qualified telephone tutors and built a friendship with the next Cane to whom he's been compared.
.24-20 to score. Knowles dig in.
I told myself, man, I'm not going to talk to him. I'm not going to pester him. I mean, he's really playing a good game. He doesn't need another coach. And besides, he knows it.
Dropping back Dorsey, throws.
I saw a couple things in their tendencies in the defensively, and some of the stuff I used to do at that point, you know, and I didn't want to say, and I said, the heck with it, I'm going up. I couldn't help myself.
The thing he said was just, you know, that this is this is an important drive. This is the type of drive that makes teams or breaks teams.
I try to say it kind of quick and not threatening and stuff, and he just goes, I got it.
After that, I just felt like I had no option but to go out and win.
Caught, touchdown Miami, 46 seconds left.
Kosar knows what he's talking about, having played for the Canes from 1982 to 84. That and a dozen years in the NFL gives him credentials to be a young quarterback's mentor. Credentials no one doubts.
I always take his advice very seriously because he's been through it all. Him and those other guys have done everything that you can even imagine. So any advice that they give me is so true and can be so well related to what I'm going through right now that I can't help but take it extremely seriously.
It's really good for Bernie, to kind of mentor him a little bit in what it takes to, to win a national championship, what it takes to be part of, a winning program like this.
The affinity Kosar and Dorsey now share were born out of similar physical attributes and similar career experiences.
When I saw Ken play that first road game at Washington, it reminded me eerily similar to my first road game at Florida, where I did exactly the same mistake he did on the first pass. I audibled in a real noisy stadium. He had audibled to a quick pass to his first play, and half the team got it. And I just want to let him know that, hey, it's not the end of the world.
After kind of hearing that from him, that kind of boosted my confidence so much that I felt like I could go out and do the same thing, and that's really almost the exact same thing we did.
That fateful Washington game last season was the last time the Hurricanes lost, and the last time Ken Dorsey seemed out of place in the pocket.
He took a lot of leadership after that game, brought a lot of leadership on himself, and showed a lot of poise in the games to come. And I think it was a big stepping stone for him.
He was mature then, but he hadn't had the game under his belt. Now that he got that game out of the way, I don't think he'll ever lose again.
As Dorsey has matured, so has his friendship with Kosar. And now their almost weekly conversations have taken a new direction.
I'm going to give him a call and just kind of, give him a hard time about all this basically, and just kind of talk. And if football comes up, but it doesn't always have to.
As we've evolved now, it's hardly any advice on what to do on the field because he gets it. I mean, he really gets it.
Any quarterback loves to have these kind of protectors. Joaquin Gonzalez, one of the great tackles. He's allowed 1 sack in his career. And this guy, number 78, Brian McKinney, has not allowed a sack. He's going to be one of the stars on draft day. You throw in Martin Bibla, who's a guard, Sherko Hashi-Razuli, Brent Romberg, couple of Canadians. That is a truly good offensive line. Kirk, you put those guys against 4 sophomores starting on Florida State's defensive line. How do you like that matchup?
Well, that's the key to the football game. Florida State's very young up front. You look at their defensive ends, they have great potential, but they're young football players. You don't see Andre Wadsworth and Peter Boulware, those types of players. They haven't been able to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Look at opposing teams. They're completing about 45% of their passes. However, 15 yards per reception. Now they face a Miami offense that has tremendous diversity. They love to spread the football around. Dorsey, as a quarterback, sees the field well. I think the Miami offense uses the tight end in the passing game as well as anybody in the country. And Jeremy Shockey leads the team with 17 receptions. They also like to get the ball out to Najee Davenport. Last year, he killed Florida State with 4 big catches. The thing that makes this offense so tough is they can come at you in so many different ways. Florida State has to be careful of defending Dorsey in the pass because Clinton Portis can run the football. There's just so much balance with this offense.
Pick your poison.
Yes, you're right.
Miami's wonderful offensive football team is led by an All-American quarterback in Ken Dorsey, but I think the key is that offensive line that Chris talked about. Now, the Noles have a chance. I mean, they have a chance because they put some new wrinkles in this off week. And watch for linebacker Kendall Pope to be the leader. Kendall, number 9, is 6'2", 220 pounds. Watch this athletic play where he jumps up, tips the football right here, and then intercepts the football. Now, he does a great job of open field tackling here in the bottom on the quarterback. People around here tell me he's the best all-around linebacker since Derek Brooks. Now, I think the Noles have got a great chance to win if they can stop the Kane running attack, force them into a one-dimensional passing attack. Easier said than done.
And make them one-dimensional stuff.
Just in case they can, Clinton Portis's credit card's going to get a workout. If he gets 150 yards against the Noles, which is hard to do, he's going to have to buy that great offensive line dinner at Joe's Stonecraft.
Oh.
Those guys can eat, and that place is expensive. And he's going to take out a loan. The tip to get a table alone, he's going to have to take out a loan. We talked about Ken Dorsey. We'll talk about Chris Ricks and Rex Grossman. Plenty more ahead on College Game Day from Tallahassee. Countdown to kickoff. The early forecast called for rain. No rain now, but for the first time, Miami's conditioning may be tested. It's going to be sticky. They haven't played into the fourth quarter, but they do have the superior depth over FSU. Well, the BCS computers are not programmed for the input of the flesh and blood spinmeister Lou Holtz. He's balking at the coaches poll ranking of number 10 for South Carolina. Lou may know the Gamecocks are the only team that's unbeaten that have allowed more yards than they've gained. That is amazing. But the BCS computer does not factor in all those ugly stats, and the unofficial BCS standings, which official ones won't come out for a couple weeks, would have South Carolina ranked number 5. Wow. Like the Gamecocks, who visit Arkansas, Georgia is a road favorite against an ugly but potentially pesky opponent, Vanderbilt. And Tony, the Georgia fans, ecstatic over beating Tennessee, are already looking ahead to that cocktail party against Florida in a couple weeks.
You're right about that, Chris. But I tell you what, I talked to Coach Mark Richt of Georgia this week, and he's concerned about that Vanderbilt game, and maybe he should be. Vanderbilt's 2 conference losses, only by 6 points. I still think Georgia gets it done. Now, you mentioned Lou Holtz at South Carolina. He remains my favorite pessimist. He says, you know what? When you look at the stats, there's no reason for us to be optimistic about going to Arkansas. This is not a good time to play Arkansas. Coach, I totally disagree. This is a great time to play Arkansas. Gamecocks get it done and go to 6-0.
I couldn't agree with you more, Tony. That was a good pick. Now, South Carolina is winning because of their defense, a solid defense. Only Alabama has scored more than 14 points against them. But they got 2 good running backs, Derek Watson and my favorite. Wait till you see this guy, Andrew Pinnick. Now, here's number 22, Derek Watson. Got good moves. He ran for 135 yards last week. But here's my favorite, number 4, 265 pounds of solid man. Andrew Pinnick scored 2 touchdowns last week. Now, this is a homecoming game for old Lou Holtz. His 7 Arkansas teams won 73% of the games, and they went to 6 straight bowl games. Old Lou Holtz remembers that. But this is going to be closer than old Lou would like. South Carolina wins, but close.
Good pick.
Good
pick. Arkansas has been very inconsistent on offense this year. In fact, you look at the numbers, 110th in the country in total offense. Now you look at their quarterback, Ryan Sorahan is still out. Brandon Holmes, one of their running backs, questionable for this football game. They're going to struggle today against South Carolina's defense, led by Kalimba Edwards. I think Kalimba Edwards, keep an eye on this player. He's one of the best players in the SEC. Leads the team in tackles. He's physical. He can come up, defend the run. Watch him in space, the top of the screen. This is what NFL scouts will love about him. As a big guy, he can play up on his feet, and he's tremendously athletic. Both these teams' offense will struggle today, but South Carolina has an experienced quarterback in Phil Petty who's been making very good decisions and a better defense. I like South Carolina to win handily.
Handily? Yes. You say close. You know, the SEC has been the most competitive conference in terms of margin of victory this season. The average margin is only 14 points. That's what makes Florida's dominance so remarkable. The margins in their 3 games, 34, 52, and 29. There are only 2 other SEC games where the margin's been bigger than 16. 2 straight 600-yard games among their top 8 all-time as they visit Auburn. And frankly, Tommy Tuberville just hoping that Florida comes in flat and brings their C game after a couple of emotional wins. It's his best shot, but I don't think it's very likely. Spurrier views Auburn and Georgia as the 2 most traditional rivals of the Gators of all time, Tony, and I think they're ready for another scary game.
Well, Chris, you know Steve Spurrier, he does not throw around praise lightly, but he said last week against LSU, if Rex Grossman keeps throwing like this, we're going to be pretty hard to stop. And that is not what Tommy Tuberville wanted to hear. Last year against Auburn, Grossman had his best 2 games of the season, 430 yards, 9 touchdowns. Said Tuberville, Steve never says anything good about his quarterbacks, but he's saying good things about this guy. That's scary. Kurt, I don't blame Tuberville. If I had to stop this Gator offense, I'd be scared too. I like the Gators big.
You know what, Tony, you look at this, what's scary is Rex threw for all those numbers against a couple cornerbacks who were seniors. You look at Auburn this year, they're a little bit younger. They've been playing well. They're 4th in the nation in pass defense. They have not been tested the way old Rexy and his talented group of wide receivers will test him today. This group is as productive as any 3 receivers on one team in the country. Of course, the leading man is Jabbar Gaffney, 33 catches, 607 yards. Rashay Caldwell on the other side, 6 touchdowns on the year. He has 25 catches, and Taylor Jacobs gives him tremendous balance on the outside. Jacobs is averaging 20 yards per reception. These 3 guys remind me of the 96 group, Riddell Anthony, Ike Hilliard, and Kwesi Green. Auburn's only chance is to sit back and play zone. Make Rex Grossman keep the ball in front and be patient. I disagree with Tony. I think Auburn, as a big underdog at home on national TV, will step up and play with emotion. Florida's going to win this game, but I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people think.
Good pick. Back to you.
Okay, buddy.
Now, the mighty Florida Gators lead the nation in total offense, passing offense, and everything. But one hidden stat. They're number 4 in the nation in scoring defense. And the leader there is a giant defensive end named Alex Brown. Now, number 13, Alex Brown, will use his speed to get this sack. Watch this. Here he comes around the corner. And he hits the quarterback. Now, watch him run down the tackle and make this one on a nice little tackle on a running play. But here's my favorite. He even blocks extra points. Not bad. Now, Auburn has won 10 straight ball games at home. And the Florida Gators, I think, are going to bring their C game. Ooh. And it's going to rain. And so I'm saying the Gators win, but closer than the experts think.
I think Auburn does play with emotion. I think it may rain, but the Gators, it's just up to them. They're probably watching this right now if they bring anything better than their C game. And I think Auburn's going to have a hard time gaining yards and scoring points in this game. You can watch the game, and I suggest these guys, I just suggest you get there early, right at 7:45. Get the scoreboard show at 7. These guys think it's a 4-quarter battle. We'll see.
Good game. Good game.
We'll talk more about this game coming up. Larry Coker and Bobby Bowden sharing a handshake at midfield. Coker in his first FSU Miami game. And welcome back. Still ahead. Predictions and analysis when FSU and Miami get together at high noon on ABC. Now to the 5 Pac-10 unbeatens. UCLA used a bye week to sharpen up the short passing game and rest those 11 studs on defense who play almost every down. The starters haven't allowed a point in the last 10 quarters. And the Butkus candidate Robert Thomas told me they plan to rattle and confuse and, quote, put some hats on Washington's first-time starting quarterback, Taylor Barton. He was a hero against SC. He's been getting quizzed on defenses by his father, Greg, who had a cup of coffee with the Lions in the late 60s. Taylor was a Neuheisel recruit to Colorado, transferred to City College of San Francisco, where he and 4 roommates pinched pennies by eating cereal 5 days a week. Now, these days, he's well fed, but old Taylor's going to need some tricks and some lucky charms to survive because Captain Crunch and that UCLA defense, Shelley Smith, they are all over him. It's unwise to count out Washington. We know that.
I think Taylor's favorite cereal was whatever was on sale that week. He ate a lot of it. Yes, he did. And yes, the Washington Huskies, they've had more comebacks under Rick Neuheisel than Jordan, Lemieux, and Elvis combined. In fact, 11 of Neuheisel's 21 wins at Washington have been fourth-quarter comebacks. Now, he says he doesn't have any more gray hair since taking the job, just less of it, especially this season, where the Huskies have had to find ways to come back in 3 of their 4 victories.
Unbelievable. Like, how is this happening?
Do you believe it? No.
Someone pulls a rabbit out of their hat, and we do it every week.
They just do not quit.
Time and time again, it's kind of like an Indiana Jones movie. You just know he's going to survive it at the end.
The Huskies were down 12-6 to Michigan in the season opener. It was here at the Washington 21-yard line that Husky corner Amari Lowe got a hand on a fourth-quarter field goal attempt.
We needed a play, and I'm watching the field goal, and I seen him come off the edge, and my first thing was like, he's got it.
I gotta make a play. I gotta do something. And I didn't know it was gonna come that big.
51 seconds later, it was here at the Michigan 21-yard line where Lowe, aided by a lucky bounce, helped seal the first of 3 amazing rallies.
Intercepted off the tip. It is Amari Lowe, and he will score.
Following a 50-point win over Idaho, Washington had to overcome a 14-point deficit to beat Cal and kick a tie-breaking field goal as time expired last week to beat USC.
Did you watch that field goal, that last
Yeah, yeah. I was taking off my tape, man. John Anderson, I knew he had it. He's money, man, when it comes down to it.
Kick on the way. Money!
Once we're in the fourth quarter and when the chips are down on the table, our guys are going to come through.
Anytime a team has as many fourth quarter comeback victories as we have, it's a reflection of the head coach himself.
When Neuheisel was an assistant at UCLA and the team would find itself behind in a game, he'd storm the sidelines yelling, "This is going to be the greatest comeback in UCLA history." He took that philosophy to Colorado and became something of a prophet.
The first time we found ourselves behind was at Michigan. So I walked up and down the sideline and said, "This is going to be the greatest comeback in Colorado history." They all looked at me like I was crazy. And then we came from behind, hit the Hail Mary, and everybody's in the locker room saying, "Neuheisel said we were going to do it."
Let's it go. Incredible.
He does the same kind of stuff here. I mean, he's real confident in his coaching staff and his players. And I think he's just the same way.
The first thing he said when he first came here was that we were going to turn around in the fourth quarter. Before he got here, we were doing horrible. Teams were outscoring us by, almost 100 points.
His second year, we started to pull out some comebacks. And he started to stress the fact that that's what's special about this team is we don't give up.
That's the key word for us, urgency. We need to have a little urgency, and it's never any panic amongst the coaches or either the team.
But not always among those who follow the team.
My dad just looks at me like, "What are you doing to me?"
Well, we want them to stay. I mean, they pay a lot of money. They might as well get a good game out of it.
These little old ladies come up to me after the game. "You're making me too nervous. Can't you hurry up and do something a little earlier?" I said, if we could, we would.
Of course, you can't win them all, but we're going to make sure we're going to have nothing left in the tank at the end of the game.
We don't like to do it like that every time, but if that's how it happens, that's what got us to the Rose Bowl last year. If that gets us to the Rose Bowl this year, so be it.
Now you'll see the Husky players and their fans hold up 4 fingers at the start of the fourth quarter, signifying the fourth quarter, because they truly believe no matter what the score, the magic will continue. Kirk?
Well, Shelley, you look at this UCLA team, and people talk about defense, and you have to give a lot of credit to Phil Snow. They've improved in every single defensive category. He has implemented an attacking style that fits his personnel well, but also credit the players. 9 starters return for this team, 7 of which are multi-year starters. When you look at Washington, you look at the injuries to the tight end, Jeremy Stevens, the quarterback, Cody Pickett. I think those injuries are going to be too much to overcome for the Huskies. I like UCLA with another impressive defensive effort to beat Washington, and I think it's going to be a good game.
You're killing them. Another good pick.
Thank you.
Let me tell you something.
Thank you,
Miami FSU is getting a lot of the national attention, but this game, UCLA against Washington, could be just as important. You know why? Because the winner could have a shot at the Rose Bowl. Now, UCLA's Deshaun Foster could be the difference. Number 26 Foster. Watch him use his stiff arm right here. I love this. It's the old-time guy. Beat gets done to the guy. Now, watch him bounce off all of the guys right. Now, remember, the key stat in this situation is this. UCLA has beaten 13 of the last 17 teams they played that are ranked. Washington is ranked, so I go with my partner. But I think it's closer than the experts think. UCLA in another close one.
Washington's opportunistic, but the Bruins defense doesn't let you cash in. They yell sudden change when their offense turns the ball over. 1 on the field, 8 UCLA turnovers. Only 1 time has it been turned into opponent's points. That's amazing. Well, the other matchup of unbeatens, it's about to get serious for both Stanford and Washington State. The next 4 opponents are perfect for Stanford. The combined record of the remaining Pac-10 opponents for Washington State is 19-1. Cougars are mad about being unranked, but they have a bigger concern. Dave Minnick, their leader, their top running back, surgery on his knee on Wednesday. 27-year-old ex-Marine out 2 to 4 weeks. They have some serious concerns with the running game without him. Another concern, Stanford, 2 weeks to prepare. And John McDonald, 17-year assistant under Mike Price. He has 12 playbooks of Washington State. They've had 2 weeks, guys, to break down personnel, to look at tendencies, and Price is concerned because a couple other assistants on Stanford were also with Wazoo. They know that team very well.
Yeah, that's a good point. You look at Washington State and Stanford offensively, they've been a big surprise this year in the Pac-10. Respectively, they're averaging 42 points and 37 points. The reason has been the play of the quarterbacks. Jason Gesser for Washington State, Randy Fasani for Stanford. Gesser has a lot of wide receivers. Even with the injury to Minnick, he'll be able to get the ball downfield. Nakoa McElrath is his go-to man. Now, Randy Fasani right now is putting together a phenomenal year. He has 10 touchdowns and only 1 interception. He's very athletic. He's moved around from a few positions, and he makes very good decisions in this Stanford offense. The injury to Minnick is crucial. True freshman Alan Thompson will have to step up for Washington State. I think Washington State has better defense than Stanford, and that's why I'm picking Washington State to beat Stanford. There are a lot of big games in the Pac-10 this week.
That's a nice pick, but not so fast. I'm going with Stanford.
You going Stanford?
Yeah, they'll beat him in a debate, too. All right, now, Oregon's quarterback Joey Harrington should be nicknamed Captain Comeback. Why? In his career, he's had 8 fourth-quarter rallies, 2 this year against Wisconsin and USC to win the ball games. Now, Oregon is as highest ranked it's ever been, number 5 in the nation in the history of the school. They won't stumble. Oregon, 2 touchdowns over Cal.
On the road today, but the Ducks will inherit the nation's longest home winning streak just in case.
Yep.
The Noles can't get it done. The emotion is building here. The Noles just did their walk with the helmets in the air and the war chant, and Bobby Bowden will have some former players speak to the team. Can he pull off the upset at home and keep the streak alive? There are the Seminoles. Number 16 is Chris Ricks. He's a Californian. He says he knew little of this rivalry until he got here to school last year. He's the youngest quarterback to start for Florida State against Miami since the 80s. Now, Ken Dorsey has said it took him a half last year in his first start against the Noles to get used to it. Ricks had better be a very quick learner, and he better get plenty of help. The last decade and a half, you know, Florida State has really been almost immune from the cyclical ups and downs that have affected almost everybody else in college football. Scott Van Pelt, the Noles trying to keep alive an amazing run.
Well, Chris, Florida State's football past is not in question, but certainly there are many questions about their football present. Namely, can this young team sort of mature on the fly in time to battle not only the Canes, but extend all the amazing winning streaks that are so many years in the making? But perhaps the biggest question right now is, what did they learn about themselves in a shocking meltdown loss at Chapel Hill 3 weeks ago, and are they over it?
I think it was just such a shock to everyone.
The second half seemed like it took hours and hours.
North Carolina's going to beat Florida State. They're not going to do it in chintzy fashion.
Everything we tried to do seemed like it would fail. That was just a shocking experience for the young guys.
It was like a wake-up call for us, and it was better that it happened then than halftime of this Miami game being down 30-40 nothing.
North Carolina stepped up and proved us that we're not as good as teams in the past yet. We still have a lot of work to do, so I think it kind of humbled us.
One year during that streak we were in, we lost our first 2 games, won the rest of them. One year we lost the first game, won the rest of them. Nearly all those years we lost a game and won the rest of them. You know, we've had some great years. We've only had 1 undefeated season. We've had some great awakenings around here.
But this Seminole squad is in uncharted waters. The departure of 15 starters from a year ago left them unusually inexperienced at key positions. Injuries decimated depth even further. For the first time since 1996, when the Noles took on number 1 ranked Florida and won, Florida State is a dog in Doak Campbell.
For one, it's like a reverse role for me. Since I've been here, we've always been the top dogs and picked to win the game. So this year's kind of reversal role, being that we're the underdogs. I always did like the underdog, because every time the underdog came out to play, the underdog always won.
Gives you more motivation. You know, let's go get them. The world's against us. The world don't think we can do it. Let's go get them. There's a lot of more motivation, I think, when you're an underdog than when you're a favorite.
And the motivation doesn't end there. Each Seminole is well versed about what is at stake. Their past success seemingly forgotten outside of Tallahassee, this team has closed ranks, determined to make good on a promise they made to one another before the year began. I will hold the rope.
It's along the lines of each player holding their end of the rope, that if another teammate is hanging over a cliff, will they hold that rope for that teammate? Will they pull them in and support them? And pretty much the bottom line, as Coach Bowden stresses, if everyone holds their end of the rope, that will be okay.
We got a lot of young guys on the team, so we have to hold the rope for each other. We got to have each other's backs and help each other out as best we can. Another way, it also means we got to hold the rope from the teams that were here in the past. I mean, we can't let this be the end of the dynasty.
It dates back all the way back to Deion Sanders' times, Leroy Butler, Pass the Warwick Dunn, and Peter Warwick. So we're definitely holding the rope for everybody who's came through the program, and we're just another link to it. Everybody on the team is going to try to hold the rope as much as they can. And I think any team that comes into Doak Campbell Stadium, it's going to be hard for them to pull that rope out of our hands.
Well, Chris, they got that rope ripped out of their hands up in Carolina. They're banking on the folks here at Doak Campbell to help them hold on tight today against Miami. Offensive tackle Brett Williams says when we come on that field with 85,000 people behind us, we feel like we're invincible.
This place got rarely emotional. That's about to change, I think, in the next 15 minutes. You pointed out yesterday the team that scored first has won 13 out of the last 14 matchups. So let's break it down. When Florida State has the ball, first of all, they're going to face a Miami defense that gets linebacker DJ Williams back. He looked okay in warm-ups. He's had a high ankle sprain.
You know, Chris, I saw Miami live and in color a couple of weeks ago, and I was really impressed with their defense. They run, they hit, they're extremely well coached. But if I think there's one area you could get to Canes, I think it's with the long pass. Now, Florida State's number 80, Javon Walker, is the key here. 16 Ricks to Walker. Touchdown right there. Number 80, Walker. Watch this adjustment on the long pass. Last week he averaged 37 yards per catch. Now, if I was running the Florida State offense, I would go over the top, and over the top until I scored, because I guarantee you're not going to run against them. Throw it. What do you got to lose? Long.
Well, I think they're going to try to do that. You look at this Miami defense, Coach is right. They're one of the best defenses in college football because of the experience and the speed, but they also have a new dimension, something we haven't seen in Miami of Florida in many, many years, and that is speed off the edge. Number 99, Andrew Williams, is absolutely a phenomenal athlete for his size. Keep an eye on him today. He has 2 sacks on the year and 19 tackles. On the other end, Jerome McDougal here pressuring a quarterback into a throwing of the football early and into a mistake. I think Florida State will not be able to run this football today against the speed of the Miami defense. Look for the Canes to try to get that young quarterback, Chris Ricks, in obvious passing situations. And at that point, they're going to try to confuse him, show him different looks, disguise coverage, and then blitz him, hoping the young freshman will make mistakes and throw interceptions to get the offense back out on the field for Miami.
Yeah, the Florida State offense has not really used the tight ends or backs. Only a total of 10 catches by guys that play in running back or tight end. That may have to change today. I think Rick's scrambling is their best chance to run the ball.
You're right there.
People think Miami plays a lot of man-to-man. They actually are very conservative with a lot of safeties. It'll be very difficult for Florida State to gouge them with a big play.
And big old dragonfly circling. We're coming right back for predictions on this game. And a reminder, coming up at noon on ESPN is Purdue and Michigan. Lloyd Carr's crew trying to guard the big house against the last unbeaten in that conference.
Today's show is presented by Discover Car, proud to be the sponsor of College Game Day, and in part by Tostitos Scoops, the dip lover's chip.
Well, these days, Purdue equals defense. Aiken, Adele, and the Boilermakers need a big game against Michigan just a few minutes away on ESPN. On ESPN2 in a few minutes, it's Iowa and Michigan State. Hawkeyes back on the road after almost getting a breakthrough win at Purdue. A few lapses in that game, but the defense gives them a good chance against T.J. Duckett and Michigan State. Spartans also coming off a heartbreaking loss.
Boy, I think that was bad. Michigan State really lost a heartbreaker in the Northwestern. But, Kirk, they had an extra week off, and I think that'll help. And it's Charles Rogers.
Yes.
Michigan State is the difference.
It's a
great
tall.
player. Yeah,
he's a big guy. I like Iowa's defense. They lead the Big Ten Conference right now in total defense. Michigan State continuing to platoon the quarterbacks. They've had a hard time protecting the quarterbacks, and I think that Iowa will win this football game.
Meanwhile, in the shoe.